Chosen one, stop. Right now, wherever you are, I need you to stop scrolling. Stop moving. Stop pretending you stumbled here by accident. Because you didn't. Tell me something. Why does the air feel different tonight? Why does your chest carry a weight you can't name? Why, out of millions of videos screaming for your attention, did your finger freeze on this one? I'll tell you why. Because September 22nd and 23rd are coming. And if you're a chosen one, if you carry even a whisper of divine assignment in your bones, these 2 days will either unlock the door heaven's been holding open for you, or slam it shut forever. Listen to me carefully, beloved. These aren't just dates on a calendar. They are spiritual coordinates. Most people see September 22 and 23 as ordinary, just another Monday and Tuesday before autumn settles in. But that's because most people are blind to the invisible architecture of time. They see ink on paper. You see locks waiting for keys. The universe, no. Let me be clear, God himself has been orchestrating something in the hidden realm. For months, perhaps years, pieces have been moving. Doors have been creaking open. Angels have been positioning themselves around your life. And now, on these 2 specific days, heaven is ready to release what's been held back. But here's the part that should terrify you into full attention. You can miss it, not because God changed his mind, not because you're unworthy, but because you were too distracted, too comfortable, too asleep to recognize the moment when it arrived. Right now, if your spirit is already trembling, if something ancient inside you just whispered, "This is for me, I need you to do something," type in the comments, "I'm ready." That's not superstition, beloved. That's you raising your hand in heaven's courtroom, declaring you're awake, alert, and willing to receive. Before we go deeper, I want to pause and honor every single soul who has supported this ministry through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message is already resonating in your soul, go ahead and let the Holy Spirit lead your heart. Now hear me clearly. What I'm about to reveal in the next few minutes will explain why your sleep has been restless, why certain people have suddenly appeared or disappeared from your life, why you've been feeling both anxious and expectant, like you're standing on the edge of something you can't yet see. September 22nd and 23rd aren't just coming. They're hunting for those who are ready. The question burning in heaven right now is simple. Will you be found? You know what haunts me most about September 22nd and 23rd? It's not what's going to happen on those days. It's how many of God's chosen ones will sleep right through them. Why? Because those days will look ordinary, painfully, deceptively ordinary. Most of America, most of the world will wake up on Monday, September 22nd, pour their coffee, check the weather, complain about their knees, and never realize they just walked past the very door heaven opened specifically for them. They'll scroll through Facebook, they'll watch the news, they'll microwave leftovers and fall asleep to reruns of shows they've seen 100 times. Tuesday, the 23rd, same routine, same blindness, same tragedy. But here's what breaks my heart into 1,000 pieces, and I need you to really hear me now. Those ordinary days are when God does his most extraordinary work. Think about it, beloved. When did the Red Sea part? On an ordinary day when Moses was backed against the water with nowhere to run. When did the walls of Jericho fall? After 6 ordinary days of walking in circles, looking foolish to anyone watching. When did Jesus rise from the dead? On what should have been just another Sunday morning in Jerusalem. God hides his greatest miracles inside moments that feel like nothing special. And you've been walking through ordinary days for how long now? 70 years? 80? 90? Every morning, same aches, same pills, same loneliness creeping in through the cracks of your quiet house. You look in the mirror and see a stranger, someone older, slower, maybe even invisible to a world that stopped noticing you years ago. Your children are busy. Your friends, half of them are gone. The other half you only see at funerals. The phone doesn't ring like it used to. Nobody asks your opinion anymore. Nobody needs your wisdom. You've become background noise in your own story. And somewhere deep inside, you wonder, did I miss it? Did God forget about me? Was my purpose buried with my spouse, with my career, with the version of myself I used to recognize? Let me tell you something that's going to shake you. What you thought was delay was actually preparation. Every single year you've spent feeling invisible. That was God hiding you, like he hid Moses in the desert for 40 years before his real assignment began. Every rejection, every closed door, every person who overlooked you, that was divine protection, keeping you from settling for less than the destiny he's been saving for you. You think you're too old? Moses was 80 when God called him to lead a nation. Abraham was 99 when God gave him the son of promise. Sarah laughed at 90 because the miracle seemed impossible, but impossible is where God does his best work. What you thought was aging was actually refining. Those wrinkles, they're not decay, they're wisdom carved into your face by decades of walking with a God who never left you, even when you felt abandoned. Those slower steps, they're not weakness, they're the measured walk of someone who's learned that rushing never got them closer to heaven's timing. That tremor in your hands, that's not just old age, that's the weight of anointing you're finally ready to carry. And what you thought was silence, that was God preparing you for this exact window. See, you couldn't hear what he's about to tell you if you were still surrounded by noise. You couldn't receive what he's about to give you if your hands were still full of things you had to let go of first. The silence wasn't abandonment, it was incubation. It was the pause before the release. And now, right now, as September 22nd and 23rd approach, like two angels walking through time with sealed envelopes marked with your name, you need to understand something crucial. Heaven carved these days into eternity long before you were born. Before your first breath, before your first heartbreak, before every tear you've cried into your pillow wondering if anyone still saw you, God marked these specific dates as the moment when everything shifts. But here's the danger, and I need you to lean in close for this. You can be standing in your moment of destiny and completely miss it because it looks too ordinary to matter. How many burning bushes have you walked past because they just looked like regular bushes? How many divine appointments have you dismissed because they came wrapped in interruptions? How many prophetic moments have you slept through because they arrived on days that felt like every other day? The Israelites wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, not because the promised land was far, but because they couldn't recognize when they were standing at its border. They saw giants instead of opportunities. They saw obstacles instead of invitations. They saw ordinary challenges instead of extraordinary thresholds. Don't you make the same mistake. Because I'm about to show you 3 prophetic metaphors, 3 ancient patterns woven into Scripture itself that will reveal exactly why September 22nd and 23rd are unlike any other days this year. 3 reasons why heaven is holding its breath, waiting to see if you'll finally wake up and walk through the door that's been waiting for you since before time began. But first, you need to understand something that will determine whether you receive what's coming or watch it pass by like every other missed opportunity. God doesn't send miracles to the distracted. He sends them to the desperate. He sends them to those who are done with ordinary. He sends them to the ones who dare to believe that even at 75, 85, 95 years old, their greatest chapter is still unwritten. So I'm asking you right now, with everything in me, are you desperate enough to pay attention? Are you tired enough of ordinary to recognize extraordinary when it's dressed in Monday clothes? Because what I'm about to reveal next will explain why these 2 days, these specific, seemingly random dates, carry the weight of your entire destiny. And if you're ready to understand, if you're willing to see what others will miss, then you need to know about the first prophetic pattern, the pattern of divine interruption. September 22nd arrives like an uninvited guest knocking at your door at 6 a.m. You know that feeling, don't you? You've just settled into your morning routine, coffee brewing, newspapers spread across the kitchen table, finally a moment of peace after 70, 80, maybe 90 years of learning how precious quiet mornings are, and then the phone rings. It's the pharmacy calling about your prescription. Or it's that automated voice reminding you about a bill you already paid. Or it's your daughter calling about something that could have waited until noon. Interruption. And it makes your blood boil, doesn't it? Because at your age you've earned the right to a peaceful morning. You've raised children who interrupted your sleep for decades. You've worked jobs where every 5 minutes someone needed something. You've spent a lifetime being available, being responsible, being the one everyone leaned on. Now you just want to drink your coffee while it's still hot. But here's what I need you to understand, beloved. What if those interruptions aren't accidents? What if that phone call that irritates you, that unexpected knock on your door, that sudden change in your routine, what if they're not disruptions at all, but divine appointments disguised as annoyances? Listen to me carefully. September 22nd is what I call the door of interruption. And on this day, heaven doesn't whisper. It rattles, it shakes. It deliberately disturbs your peace, not to punish you, but to wake you up. Think about it. When was the last time God showed up at a convenient moment? When Moses was 80 years old, tending sheep in the wilderness, probably thinking his life's work was done. What happened? A bush burst into flames. An interruption so massive he couldn't ignore it. Exodus 3:2 tells us, "There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush." Moses could have walked away. He could have thought, "I'm too old for this nonsense. I've got sheep to tend. This is probably just the desert heat playing tricks on my eyes." But he didn't. He turned aside. He investigated the interruption. And that single moment of paying attention to what seemed like a disturbance changed the destiny of an entire nation. Or what about Abraham? Genesis 18 tells us he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day, which in ancient terms means nap time. The man was 99 years old, for heaven's sake. He'd earned his afternoon rest. And suddenly, 3 strangers appear. An interruption. He could have ignored them. He could have told Sarah, "I'm too tired for visitors." But instead, he ran to meet them. He prepared a feast. He honored the interruption. And those strangers? They were angels carrying the promise that within a year, Sarah would hold the son they'd been waiting for their entire lives. The interruption was the delivery method for their miracle. Now I need you to think about your life right now. Has peace felt off lately? Have you noticed that nothing seems to go smoothly anymore? Doctor appointments get rescheduled. Plans fall through at the last minute. People who used to be predictable suddenly act strange. Your routine, that blessed, comfortable routine you've built over decades, keeps getting disrupted. You've been calling it bad luck. You've been blaming it on your age, on the chaos of modern life, on Mercury being in retrograde, or whatever excuse feels convenient. But what if it's not chaos at all? What if it's calibration? What if God is deliberately shaking your comfortable patterns because He's about to drop something into your life that requires you to be fully awake, fully alert, fully present? Think about a storm siren. That sound is the most annoying, ear-splitting, peace-destroying noise you can imagine. It interrupts everything: your dinner, your sleep, your sense of safety. You hate hearing it. But would you rather have silence while a tornado tears through your neighborhood? That irritating sound saves lives because it forces you to pay attention. September 22nd is your storm siren day. It's going to feel wrong. Things are going to break in your routine. People are going to show up at the wrong time. Plans are going to shift. And your first instinct will be frustration. Why can't anything just go smoothly? Why can't I have one peaceful day? But I'm telling you right now, pause before you curse those interruptions. Before you hang up on that unexpected phone call. Before you dismiss that strange feeling that something's about to change. Before you ignore that person who suddenly reaches out after years of silence, stop and ask yourself, is this an interruption or is this an invitation? Because here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. He doesn't want you to realize that every door from heaven looks like an inconvenience at first. Every divine appointment feels like a disruption. Every miracle starts with something that rattles your comfort. The Israelites thought the Red Sea was a dead end until Moses raised his staff. The widow thought Elijah asking for her last meal was an insult until her oil never ran out. Mary thought the angel's announcement was terrifying until she understood she was carrying the Savior of the world. What you're calling an interruption might be heaven trying to hand you your breakthrough. But you have to be awake enough to recognize it. You have to be alert enough to respond. You have to be willing enough to turn aside from your routine and investigate what God might be doing in the disruption. If you've been feeling off balance lately, if your peace has been rattled, if your routine has been disrupted, if things that used to work smoothly suddenly feel chaotic, I need you to type in the comments right now, I notice it. Because that noticing, that awareness that something's different, that's not paranoia, beloved. That's your spirit recognizing that heaven is moving. That's your soul sensing that the door is creaking open. That's God confirming that you're not losing your mind, you're about to find your destiny. September 22nd will test whether you can see past the irritation to the invitation, whether you can look beyond the disruption to the divine appointment, whether you can recognize that the very thing trying to disturb your peace might be the exact thing trying to deliver your promise. But here's the warning that should make your blood run cold. If you miss day one, if you sleep through the interruptions, if you curse what you should have blessed, day two won't even reveal itself. The sequence will collapse before it begins. You'll spend the rest of September wondering why nothing changed, never realizing you dismissed your miracle because it showed up at an inconvenient time. So the question burning in heaven right now isn't whether the door will open. The question is, when it does, will you walk through it? Or will you be too irritated to notice it was there? Now listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you will shake everything you thought you knew about September 23rd. This is the second door, and unlike the first door that announced itself with thunder, this one whispers. It doesn't kick down your defenses, it knocks so softly you'll mistake it for background noise. Most people walk right past it. They never even know it was there. But you're not most people, are you? September 23rd carries a different frequency. It's the day of pressure. Not the pressure that crushes, the pressure that reveals. Think about a diamond, beloved. You know what creates that brilliant stone that catches light and throws rainbows across the room? Pressure. Unimaginable pressure, deep beneath the Earth's surface, squeezing carbon for millennia until it transforms into something priceless. That's what this day does to your spirit. But here's what breaks my heart about so many of God's chosen ones, especially those of you who've walked this earth for 70, 80, 90 years. You've learned to carry weight that no one else can see. The financial pressure that keeps you up at 3 a.m., calculating whether you can afford both medicine and groceries this month. The loneliness that sits in your chest like a stone, not because you're alone in the room, but because you're alone in your understanding. The health battles that doctors can't quite explain. The chronic pain that's become your unwanted companion, the weariness in your bones that whispers, maybe I'm just too old for miracles now. You think God doesn't see that weight? He sees it, every ounce, every invisible burden you've carried in silence because you didn't want to worry your children, every tear you've cried in the shower where no one could hear, every prayer you've whispered at the kitchen table at dawn when the house was still sleeping. And September 23rd is the day he tests whether you'll let him carry it or whether you'll keep white-knuckling your way through life, pretending you've got it all under control. The second door doesn't test your strength. It tests your surrender. Here's how it works. This door hides itself inside the smallest choices. The phone call that you almost let go to voicemail, the one from that person you haven't spoken to in years. The sudden urge to forgive someone who doesn't deserve it, who never even apologized. The whisper in your spirit, to step out and do something that feels impossible at your age, to start that ministry, to write that letter, to have that conversation you've been avoiding for decades. You'll feel it as discomfort, as inconvenience, as something you can handle later or tomorrow, or when I feel stronger. That feeling, that's the door knocking. And here's the devastating truth. If you dismiss it, if you push it aside, if you tell yourself it's not important enough to interrupt your routine, the third door never even appears. The sequence collapses. The bridge you're crossing suddenly has a missing plank, and there's no way forward. Proverbs 3:5-6 tells us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight." But notice what it says, lean not on your own understanding. That means there will be moments when God asks you to move, and it won't make sense. It won't feel comfortable. It won't fit your timeline or your energy level or your bank account. September 23rd will ask you to trust him anyway. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're crossing an old rope bridge high above a canyon. You can't see the other side through the mist. Each wooden plank represents a choice, a moment of obedience. The first plank was September 22nd. You stepped on it. You felt it hold your weight. But now comes the second plank, and this one looks different. It's weathered, it's narrow, and your knees aren't what they used to be. Every fiber of your being wants to turn back, to play it safe, to wait for a better bridge. But there is no other bridge, beloved. This is your crossing. And if you refuse to step on that second plank, if you let fear or exhaustion or the voice that says, "I'm too old for this," stop you, then the entire bridge dissolves into mist. You don't just miss one step, you lose the whole journey. Think about Moses. Exodus 3 tells us God called him from a burning bush when he was 80 years old. 80. The man had been a shepherd for 40 years, forgotten in the desert, convinced his life's purpose had passed him by. And God shows up and says, Now is when I use you." Moses could have said, "Lord, I'm too old. My speech is slow. I've got arthritis in my knees and my back isn't what it used to be." But instead, he leaned into the pressure. He picked up that staff. He walked back to Egypt. And he became the deliverer of millions. Sarah was 90 when she conceived Isaac. 90. Her body had long passed the point of possibility. But when God applied pressure to her faith, when he asked her to believe the impossible, she leaned in, and she birthed nations. You think your age disqualifies you. Your age is your qualification. Every year you've survived is proof that God has kept you here for a reason. Every scar is evidence that you've been through fires that would have consumed weaker souls. Every grey hair is a crown of glory earned through faithful endurance. But September 23rd will test whether you still believe that. The pressure won't come as a dramatic sign. It'll come as a small prompting, a gentle nudge, a quiet knowing that you're supposed to do something that doesn't make logical sense. And in that moment, beloved, you have to choose. Will you lean into the discomfort and trust that God is making your path straight? Or will you lean back into what's familiar, what's safe, what's been slowly killing your spirit for years? Because here's what most people don't understand about pressure. It doesn't just reveal diamonds, it also reveals dust. What you're made of becomes undeniable when the squeeze comes, and God is watching. Not to judge you, but to see if you're ready for what he's prepared. The blessing he's been holding back isn't for the version of you that plays it safe. It's for the version of you that's willing to step on the second plank even when your knees shake. James 1:2-4 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Not lacking anything. That's the promise hidden in the pressure. So when September 23rd arrives and you feel that uncomfortable nudge, when the phone rings from that unexpected number, when your spirit whispers to forgive what seems unforgivable, when God asks you to step out in faith, at an age when everyone expects you to step back, don't you dare dismiss it as coincidence. That's the second door opening, and your response determines everything. Because, beloved, if you lean into the pressure, if you surrender to the squeeze, if you let God transform your carbon into diamond, the third door doesn't just appear, it swings wide open. And what's waiting on the other side will take your breath away. But if you ignore it, if you let comfort win, if you convince yourself that your season has passed and this prompting is just your imagination, then the sequence ends, the bridge collapses, and you'll spend the rest of your days wondering what could have been if you'd just had the courage to take that second step. The pressure is coming, the door is knocking, and time is running out. The only question that matters now is this: when the squeeze comes, will you become dust or diamond? Now, beloved, lean in close, because what I'm about to reveal will explain why these 2 days carry a weight you can feel in your bones even if you don't yet understand it. You see, destiny doesn't arrive as a single thunderclap. It comes in 3 movements, like a symphony that most people never hear because they're too busy making noise. September 22nd and 23rd aren't random coordinates on your calendar. They are the opening notes of something that's been composed specifically for you. Let me show you what heaven is orchestrating. The flame. September 22nd, the day of ignition. On this day, God strikes the match. But here's what terrifies me for those who aren't paying attention: a flame doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It begins as a whisper of heat, a flicker so subtle you could miss it if you blink. Think about Moses at the burning bush. Exodus 3:2 tells us, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. But notice what scripture says. Next, Moses had to turn aside to look. The bush was burning, yes, but Moses could have walked right past it. He could have dismissed it as desert heat playing tricks on tired eyes. But he didn't. He turned. He noticed. He leaned in. That's September 22nd for you. This is the day when something will feel off. Not wrong, but charged. Like the air before lightning strikes. You might wake up restless, your spirit vibrating at a frequency your mind can't explain. A conversation might rub you the wrong way. An opportunity might present itself wrapped in inconvenience. A door might crack open that logic tells you to ignore. Most people will dismiss it. Just a weird day, they'll say, scrolling through their phones, drowning in noise, completely unaware that heaven just handed them a lit match. But you're not most people, are you? The flame on September 22nd isn't about comfort, it's about ignition, it's tension. It's the universe pressing against your routine, disturbing your autopilot, forcing you to feel something. And if you lean in like Moses did, if you turn aside and say, "What is this?" the flame becomes revelation. But ignore it, beloved, and the match burns out. And no second flame is coming. The frame, September 23rd, the day of structure. If you pass the test of the flame, if you stayed awake on the 22nd, then September 23rd becomes the day God builds the bones. This is where most chosen ones stumble. Because the 23rd doesn't feel spiritual, it feels practical. It's not about visions and shivers down your spine. It's about decisions, hard ones. The kind that require you to choose discomfort over ease, to act when you'd rather wait, to stand when sitting feels safer. Think about Noah. Genesis 6:22 says, Noah did everything just as God commanded him. Sounds simple, right? But do you understand what that meant? It meant cutting down trees when there was no rain in sight. It meant hammering planks together while neighbors mocked him. It meant building an ark, an enormous, impossible structure one board at a time, for years, with no visible proof that the flood was coming. September 23rd is your ark building day. This is when heaven tests whether you can hold steady under pressure, whether you can construct the frame of your future even when you can't see the full blueprint yet. It won't feel dramatic. You won't hear angels singing. You might just face a choice that seems small, returning a phone call you'd rather avoid, having a conversation that makes your stomach twist, saying yes to something that interrupts your comfort. And here's the crushing truth. The structure you build on this day becomes the foundation for everything that follows. If you skip it, if you choose convenience over obedience, then what comes next collapses before it even begins. 4 is the number of foundation in Scripture. 4 corners of the earth, 4 winds of heaven, 4 living creatures surrounding God's throne. September 23rd is your 4th, your frame, your skeleton, your unshakable base. But you have to build it even when it hurts. The flight, what follows, the day of freedom. Now here's where it gets beautiful. If you honored the flame on the 22nd and built the frame on the 23rd, then what follows isn't just blessing, it's flight. It's the moment when everything that's been heavy suddenly becomes weightless. When doors don't just open, they swing wide. When provisions don't trickle, they flood. Isaiah 40-31 promises us, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." But beloved, you can't soar without wings. And wings are built from the flame that awakened you and the frame that held you steady. This is the divine mathematics heaven operates by. 3 is spark, 4 is frame, 5 is leap. September 22nd ignites you. September 23rd structures you. And what follows? Freedom, breakthrough, the blessing you've been crying for at 3 a.m. that becomes inevitable. But only if you don't miss the first 2 steps. Because here's the terrifying truth nobody wants to tell you. If you skip the flame or ignore the frame, then 5, the leap, becomes chaos instead of freedom. You jump, but there's no foundation beneath you. You reach, but your hands grasp at smoke. You pray for breakthrough, but you're standing in the exact same place, wondering why nothing changes. The flight isn't optional. It's waiting, but it only comes to those who walked through the fire and built the bones. The urgency you can't ignore. Right now, I need you to understand something that should make your blood run cold and your spirit catch fire at the same time. Someone else is reading this. Someone who's been praying for the exact breakthrough you've been asking God for. And if you sleep through September 22nd and 23rd, if you ignore the flame and skip the frame, that blessing doesn't disappear. It passes to them. Heaven doesn't waste miracles on the distracted. Destiny doesn't wait for hesitation. God is looking for the ones who will stay awake, lean in, and build even when it's hard. So let me ask you, will that be you? Or will you be the one who realizes too late that you were standing at the threshold but never walked through? If your spirit is burning right now, if you feel that ancient stirring in your chest, I need you to do something. Type in the comments, "I claim the spark." Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Right now, because that declaration isn't just words on a screen, it's you raising your hand in heaven's courtroom, telling God you're alert, you're ready, you're willing to walk through the flame and build the frame. The question heaven is asking isn't whether you want the blessing, it's whether you'll recognize the doorway when it appears. You know what breaks my heart? It's when I see the look in the eyes of a 70-year-old woman who whispers to me, "Pastor, I think God's done with me." Or the 85-year-old man who says, "My best years are behind me. I'm just waiting now." Waiting for what? To die. Let me tell you something that's going to shake the foundation of every lie the enemy has whispered in your aging ears. The world looks at your gray hair and sees decline. Your own children look at your slower pace and see limitation. Even the church, God forgive us, looks at your wrinkled hands and assumes your service is over. But heaven sees something entirely different. When God looks at you at 70, at 80, at 90 years old, He doesn't see someone whose time has passed. He sees someone whose time has finally come. Listen to me carefully, dear one. Your wrinkles are not weakness. They are proof of survival. Every line on your face is a battle scar from a war you refused to quit. Your scars are not shame, they are signatures of divine trust. God marked you with them because He knew you could carry what would have destroyed lesser souls. And your age isn't your disqualification, it's your qualification. The world celebrates youth because youth has potential. But God celebrates the elderly because you have proof. You don't just believe God is faithful, you've watched him show up for 50, 60, 70 years. You don't just hope he keeps his promises, you've got decades of testimony proving he does. Do you remember Moses? 80 years old when God called him to the burning bush. 80. The world would have put him in a nursing home, but God put a staff in his hand and said, "Now we begin." For the next 40 years, Moses would part seas, speak to Pharaoh, and lead millions to freedom. His greatest chapter didn't start until most people would say his life was over. What about Sarah? 90 years old when she conceived Isaac. Her womb was dead, her body was past its season, and she laughed at the impossibility of it all. But Genesis 21:6 tells us, Sarah said, "God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." That wasn't the laughter of mockery, it was the sound of a woman who discovered that with God, deadlines mean nothing. Anna the prophetess was 84 years old, spending every single day in the temple, praying and fasting. People probably thought, "Poor old Anna, still hanging around after all these years." But when baby Jesus was brought to the temple, she was the first to recognize the Messiah and proclaim him to all Jerusalem. Her age didn't diminish her prophetic authority, it amplified it. And Caleb? At 85 years old, while everyone else was retiring to their tents, Caleb stood up and declared in Joshua 14:12, "Give me this mountain, not give me rest. Not give me comfort, give me the mountain. Give me the giants. Give me the impossible." So tell me, why have you been believing the lie that your season is over? Is it because your knees ache when you climb the stairs? Is it because you can't move as fast as you used to? Is it because the world has convinced you that value is measured in productivity and you're no longer productive by their standards? That's not God's voice. That's the enemy's propaganda designed to silence the very generation that carries the most dangerous weapon against his kingdom, the weapon of tested, proven, unshakable faith. You see, the young have passion, but you have perseverance. They have energy, but you have endurance. They have dreams, but you have the wisdom to know which dreams come from heaven and which ones come from ego. The devil knows something the world has forgotten. A senior saint on their knees in prayer is more powerful than 1,000 motivational speakers on a stage. Your prayers carry weight because they're backed by decades of watching God move. When you speak a blessing, it lands different because you've survived enough curses to know the difference. But here's what most people miss, and this is crucial. September 22nd and 23rd are not random dates circled on heaven's calendar. They are crowning days. Days when God looks at his faithful warriors who have endured, survived, and remained standing, and says, Now I vindicate everything you've carried in secret." These 2 days are your Joshua 14:10 moment. You remember what Caleb said? "Just as I was then, so now am I this day, as strong for war both to go out and to come in." At 85, he wasn't claiming youth, he was claiming divine strength that doesn't diminish with age. God didn't preserve you through heart attacks and surgeries just to have you fade quietly away. He didn't sustain you through losses and betrayals just to park you in a rocking chair. He didn't keep you breathing through a pandemic just to let your final years pass in obscurity. You were kept because you're needed. Right now, for this exact moment in history. September 22nd and 23rd will not pass you by because of your age. These days will crown you because of it. Every sleepless night you spent praying for your prodigal children that wasn't wasted intercession. That was you standing in the gap when no one else had the faith to believe. Every tear you cried when the bills didn't match the bank account, those weren't signs of failure. Those were liquid offerings that heaven collected in golden bowls. Your endurance bought you authority. Your survival earned you a seat at a table most people never even see. So let me ask you directly, are you going to let the world's definition of too old rob you of what heaven is about to release? Are you going to surrender to the lie that your time has passed when God himself is saying your time has arrived? Because here's the truth, that should set your spirit on fire. These 2 days in September aren't just for the young and energetic. They're specifically designed for those who have been refined by time, tested by trials, and proven faithful through seasons that would have broken ordinary believers. You are not ordinary. You never were. And September 22nd and 23rd are about to prove it. You know what's been eating at you, don't you? It's not the bills piling up on your kitchen table. It's not even the health report that came back with numbers you didn't want to see. It's something deeper, something that wakes you up at 2:47 a.m. and sits on your chest like a stone. It's the silence. You've been praying for decades, 70, 80, maybe 90 years of calling out to a God who seems to have put you on mute. You've whispered your fears into the darkness of your bedroom. You've cried out in that car ride home from the doctor's office. You've even screamed his name in moments when the pain was so sharp you thought your heart would crack wide open. And what did you get back? Silence. Your children stopped calling. Silence. Your body started breaking down piece by piece. Silence. You watched others testify about their miracles while you sat in the back pew, wondering if God had somehow skipped over your pew, your prayer, your life. Listen to me right now, chosen one. I need you to lean in close, because what I'm about to tell you will shatter every lie you've believed about that silence. Silence was never God ignoring you. Silence was God recording you. In Job 16:19, a man who lost everything, his children, his wealth, his health, cried out, "Even now my witness is in heaven, my advocate is on high." Job didn't know it in his agony, but heaven was writing. Every groan, every tear, every moment he chose to worship anyway. You see, dear one, heaven operates like a courtroom. And in that courtroom, there's a stenographer, angels with golden pens documenting every single word you whispered when you thought no one was listening. 1 Samuel 1 tells us about Hannah, a barren woman so broken she couldn't even speak her prayer out loud. She just moved her lips in the temple while her heart bled in silence. The priest thought she was drunk. The people thought she was crazy. But God was recording. And 11 months later, she held Samuel in her arms, the prophet who would anoint kings. Your silence wasn't abandonment. It was documentation. Every time you got down on your arthritic knees when your body screamed not to heaven, wrote it down. Every time you forgave, when bitterness would have been easier, angels took notes. Every morning you woke up with nothing changed, but you chose to believe anyway. God stamped it. Faithful. Psalm 56:8 declares, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book." That's not poetry, beloved. That's protocol. Heaven has been keeping meticulous records of your faithfulness when no one else was watching. But here's where it gets urgent. Here's where September 22nd and 23rd become the most important dates you'll face this year. Those days aren't noisy. They won't come with trumpets or lightning or audible voices from the sky. They are quiet seals. Think of them as the moment when the stenographer stops writing and hands the record to the judge. When the documentation phase ends and the declaration phase begins, heaven leans in, not to your shouts, but to your whispers. On September 22nd, God is reviewing the transcript of your silence. He's reading every prayer you prayed when your voice cracked, every worship song you hummed while doing dishes alone, every "thank you, Jesus" you whispered when you had nothing left to be thankful for except Him. And on September 23rd, that's when He stamps it, approved. But you have to understand something that most people miss. These quiet seals only activate if you're still whispering, if you've given up, if you've stopped praying because you think no one's listening, if you've let bitterness replace your worship. The seal breaks. The record gets filed as incomplete. Revelation 8:3-4 shows us something staggering. Another angel, who had a golden censer, came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense to offer, with the prayers of all God's people, on the golden altar in front of the throne. The smoke of the incense, together with the prayers of God's people, went up before God. Your prayers don't disappear, chosen one. They accumulate. They pile up like compound interest in heaven's bank. And September 22nd and 23rd are when God cashes them all in at once. This is why you've been feeling that strange heaviness lately. That sense that something's about to break open. Your spirit knows what your mind hasn't caught up to, yet the silent season is ending. But I need you to do something right now. Not tomorrow, not after you finish this video. Right now. If you've been walking through a season of silence, if you've been wondering if God forgot your address, if you've been tempted to give up because the wait has been so long, I need you to type 4 words in the comments. He hears me. That's not just a comment, that's a declaration. That's you telling heaven that even when you couldn't hear him, you knew he was hearing you. That's you activating the seal before September 22nd even arrives. Because here's the truth that will wreck you. The silence wasn't preparation for disappointment. The silence was preparation for overflow. And what's about to overflow on September 22nd and 23rd will make up for every prayer you thought went unanswered, every tear you thought fell unseen, every year you thought was wasted waiting. The stenographer just put down the pen. The judge is opening the record. And your name? It's about to be called, but only if you're still whispering when he calls it. So I ask you again, are you still praying? Are you still believing? Are you still standing in that secret place where no one sees you but God? Because what happens in the next section will show you exactly what heaven does with the prayers you thought were lost in silence. Now listen to me very carefully, chosen one, because what I'm about to reveal will explain why your entire future hinges on these 2 days. You see, most people think time moves in straight lines. They believe September 22nd happens, then it's gone. September 23rd arrives, then it fades into memory. But that's not how the spiritual realm operates. Time doesn't erase energy, it magnifies it. And these 2 days, they don't just pass, they echo. Think of it like this. When you drop a stone into still water, you don't just see the splash. You see the ripples spreading outward, wider and wider, until they touch every edge of the pond. That's exactly what happens with September 22nd and 23rd. Every choice you make, every thought you entertain, every word you speak, it doesn't stay contained in those 48 hours. It ripples forward into October, November, into 2026, into the rest of your life. But here's what terrifies me for those who aren't paying attention. There are 3 specific echoes being released during these days, and depending on which one you activate, your destiny either explodes with blessing or collapses into delay. The first echo is the faith echo. Hebrews 11:1 tells us, "Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." But here's what that verse doesn't tell you. Faith isn't static. It multiplies. It compounds. It echoes. Every small act of faith you demonstrate on September 22nd and 23rd becomes a domino. One act of trust. Maybe it's finally making that phone call you've been avoiding. Maybe it's speaking that word of encouragement to someone when your own heart feels empty. Maybe it's tithing that last $20 when fear is screaming at you to hold on tight. That single act doesn't just bless the moment. It sets off a chain reaction. Your faith echo travels forward like dominoes falling in perfect sequence. One act of trust creates an opening for provision. That provision creates confidence. That confidence creates another opportunity. And suddenly, 6 weeks from now, you're standing in a miracle you can't even trace back to its origin because you forgot about that small choice you made on September 22nd. But beloved, this echo only activates if you move. Faith isn't passive. It's not sitting in your recliner saying, "God, I believe." It's standing up on trembling knees and taking the step anyway. James 2:17 cuts straight to the bone. Faith without works is dead. These 2 days are asking you, will you birth living faith or bury dead belief? The second echo is the fear echo. And this one, dear one, This one destroys more destinies than any demon ever could. 2 Timothy 1-7 declares, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love, and of a sound mind. But fear doesn't announce itself with a trumpet. It whispers, it suggests, it delays. On September 22nd and 23rd, fear will visit you. Not as terror, that would be too obvious. It will come as reasonable hesitation, as logical caution, as the voice that says, maybe tomorrow would be better. Maybe you should think about this a little longer. Maybe you're not quite ready yet. And here's the deadly truth. Every hesitation you entertain during these 2 days expands like a virus through your timeline. One moment of fear-based delay creates a misalignment. That misalignment creates a closed door. That closed door creates frustration. That frustration creates bitterness. And suddenly, by Thanksgiving, you're sitting at a table wondering why everyone else's prayers got answered except yours. You want to know the real reason? Because on September 22nd, when heaven was holding out the opportunity, fear whispered, wait, and you listened. Let me ask you something that might sting. How many blessings have you already missed because fear convinced you that hesitation was wisdom? How many divine appointments passed you by because you were too afraid to look foolish, too scared to step out, too comfortable in your cage to reach for the key? The fear echo doesn't just delay your breakthrough, it multiplies your regret. And regret, beloved, is the most expensive emotion you can carry into your golden years. But there's a third echo, and this one holds the power to break curses that have haunted your family for generations. The forgiveness echo. Jesus said in Matthew 6:14-15, if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. Now, I know what you're thinking. You've heard this sermon before. You've tried to forgive before. But on September 22nd and 23rd, forgiveness isn't just a nice spiritual exercise, it's a cosmic release valve. Every act of forgiveness during these 2 days creates ripples of breakthrough that your natural mind cannot comprehend. When you finally let go of that bitterness toward your ex-spouse, when you release the resentment toward your children who don't call, when you stop rehearsing that betrayal from 20 years ago, you're not just freeing them, you're unlocking your own future. Bitterness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And beloved, I've watched too many precious saints waste their final years choking on unforgiveness, wondering why healing never comes, why peace never settles, why joy feels like a foreign language. But when you choose forgiveness on these 2 sacred days, something supernatural happens. That release creates a ripple. The ripple becomes a wave. The wave becomes a flood of grace that washes over your health, your relationships, your finances, your peace of mind. One woman released 25 years of bitterness toward her sister on a day just like this, and within 3 weeks, her chronic pain disappeared. Not because the forgiveness healed her body directly, but because unforgiveness had been the blockage, and once she released it, heaven could finally move. Now here's the truth that should make you tremble. You don't get to choose which echo activates by accident. The echo you release is determined by your intentional choices during these 48 hours. Faith echoes forward when you choose trust over safety. Fear echoes forward when you choose hesitation over action. Forgiveness echoes forward when you choose release over resentment. And here's the part that connects everything we've talked about. Remember earlier when I told you about the cement of September 22nd and 23rd? How these days are when the spiritual foundation hardens? Well, now you understand it's not just hardening, it's radiating. The cement isn't just setting your position, it's broadcasting your frequency. Whatever you seal on September 22nd and 23rd doesn't stay locked in those 2 days. It transmits forward like a radio signal, attracting circumstances, people, and opportunities that match its vibration. Seal faith, and you attract faithful outcomes. Seal fear, and you attract fearful delays. seal forgiveness, and you attract breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough. Time does not erase energy, beloved. It magnifies it. What you seal is what you send, and what you send is what returns, multiplied, amplified, and unavoidable. So tell me right now, in the deepest chamber of your heart, which echo will you release? Which frequency will you broadcast into your future? Because September 22nd and 23rd are coming whether you're ready or not. The question is, will you be the one creating echoes of destiny, or will you be the one drowning in echoes of regret? Now listen carefully, because what I'm about to show you will make the hair on your arms stand straight up. God doesn't waste numbers. Every digit in Scripture carries weight, carries purpose, carries prophecy. And when two numbers appear side by side, September 22 and 23, it's not coincidence. It's celestial grammar. Heaven is speaking in a language most people never learn to read. Let me break this down for you. 22. Double completion. In Hebrew numerology, the number 22 represents the master builder, the divine architect finishing what was left incomplete. There are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, the very language God used to speak creation into existence. When you see 22, you're looking at God's signature on finished work. Think about it. How many years have you been carrying something unfinished? That dream you started and abandoned, that calling you heard but never answered, that healing you prayed for but haven't seen. September 22nd is the day God walks back into your workshop and says, I'm completing what I started. You've been waiting, wondering if maybe you misheard him. Maybe you were too old, too late, too broken for God to use. But 22 says different. 22 says the master builder doesn't leave projects half done. He's been working in the unseen realm while you thought he'd forgotten, and on September 22nd, the veil lifts. What's been built in secret gets revealed in public. But here's where it gets prophetic. 23. The shepherd's promise. Most of you know Psalm 23. You've heard it at funerals, whispered it in hospital rooms, clung to it when you thought you'd drown. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. But have you ever asked yourself why David wrote it? Not when he was sitting on his throne in Jerusalem. Not when he was comfortable and celebrated. He wrote it when he was running for his life. When King Saul was hunting him through caves and wilderness. When every day could have been his last. David penned Psalm 23 inches the valley. Not after the valley. During the valley. And listen to what he declares. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Chosen one, September 22nd is your valley night. It's the trembling, it's the darkness pressing in from all sides. It's when every fear you've suppressed comes crawling back, whispering that nothing's going to change, that you're stuck, that this is all their island. But September 23rd, that's when you wake up in green pastures. You see, David didn't stay in the valley. The valley was never his destination, it was the hallway. The narrow passage between where he was and where God was taking him. And on the other side, he makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. Do you hear that? Restores, not repairs, not patches up. Restores brings back to original design, original purpose, original glory. How many of you right now feel like your soul's been running on empty for years? You've given and given until there's nothing left. You've prayed until your voice went hoarse. You've believed until belief itself felt like a burden. Your soul isn't tired, beloved. Your soul is hungry, starving for the green pastures God promised you. And September 23rd is when heaven opens the gate. But let me ask you something that's going to sting. Are you still trying to force your way out of the valley with your own strength? Are you still looking for shortcuts, side doors, escape hatches? Because here's the truth nobody wants to hear. The valley isn't optional. David didn't say, if I walk through the valley. He said, when I walk through, present tense, active tense. This isn't passive suffering. This is purposeful transition. You can't skip the valley and still arrive at the pasture. The valley is where fear dies, where control surrenders, where you stop trusting in your own understanding and start leaning into His rod and His staff. Those two tools, the rod and the staff, they're not decorations. The rod beats off predators. The staff pulls you out when you slip. In other words, September 22nd might feel like warfare, but God's already armed for it. He's already positioned between you and everything that wants to devour your destiny. Think about your life right now. What valley are you walking through? Is it financial, medical, relational, spiritual? Maybe it's all of the above, pressing in so tight you can barely breathe. You keep asking God, how much longer? When will this end? And God keeps answering, through. Keep walking through. Because here's the mystery hidden in Psalm 23, the valley isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's the dark tunnel before the explosive light. It's the compression before the breakthrough. You can't appreciate green pastures until you've crawled through barren ground. You can't value still waters until you've been dying of thirst. September 22nd is the final mile through the shadow. But September 23rd, that's when you step into provision so abundant, you'll wonder why you ever doubted. Here's what the chosen ones understand that the masses miss. God doesn't bring you to the valley to leave you there. He brings you through the valley to deliver you to the other side. The valley is temporary. The pasture is permanent. The shadow is fleeting. The shepherd is eternal. And right now, this very moment, heaven is positioning you for the transition. September 22nd isn't the end. It's the exhale before the inhale. It's the crouch before the leap. It's the valley before the pasture. So when the 22nd comes and everything feels dark, you hold on to this. Double completion is already in motion. What God started, He's finishing. When the 23rd arrives and you feel that shift, when the atmosphere changes, when the weight lifts, when suddenly you can breathe again, you remember, you're not dreaming, you're arriving. The valley isn't the end, it's the hallway. The pasture isn't a fantasy, it's your next address. Now I need you to do something. Right now, wherever you are, I want you to type in the comments, "The Lord is my shepherd." Don't just read it, declare it. Speak it over your finances. Speak it over your health. Speak it over your family. Speak it over every valley that's tried to swallow you whole. Because when you declare Psalm 23 on September 22nd, you're not hoping for provision, you're activating it. You're telling the valley it no longer has authority over your destiny. You're announcing to every shadow, every fear, every doubt that the shepherd is leading you through, and what's on the other side is already yours. But time is running out. These aren't rehearsal days. These are real-time doorways. And if you're still watching, still listening, still feeling that pull in your chest, then you already know this message isn't for everyone. It's for you. Dear one, I need to speak directly to you right now. And I'm not talking to the young influencers scrolling through their phones. I'm not addressing the middle-aged hustlers chasing their next promotion. I'm speaking to you, the 70-year-old grandmother sitting in that worn armchair, wondering if your prayers even matter anymore. The 82-year-old grandfather who feels invisible in a world that worships youth. The retired teacher, the widowed veteran, the forgotten elder who's been told by society, by culture, by the cruel whisper of time itself that your season is over. They lied to you. Your children think you're winding down. Your grandchildren scroll past you looking for someone relevant. This nation has built retirement homes like waiting rooms for heaven, as if your purpose expired with your pension. But here's what breaks my heart, and should ignite yours. You believed them. You've been sitting there convinced your best years are behind you, that God's mighty moves are reserved for younger backs, stronger hands, sharper minds. You've watched the world celebrate the 30-year-old pastor, the 5-year-old entrepreneur, the teenage worship leader, and you whispered to yourself, my time has passed. But September 22nd and 23rd are about to prove that heaven operates on a completely different timeline. Listen to what the prophet Joel declared, and this isn't poetry, this is prophecy. Your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions. Joel 2:28. Did you catch that? Old men, not former men, not has-been men, not men whose purpose died with their retirement party. Old men shall dream, present tense, active, alive. God doesn't put his generals on the bench when the final battle approaches. He doesn't shelve his wisest weapons when the enemy is at the gate. And right now, beloved, we are living in the last of the last days. The harvest is ripe, the laborers are few, and heaven is scanning the earth for those who've been tested by time, refined by fire, and proven faithful through decades of standing. You are that weapon. Think of it like this. Imagine a relay race. For those of you who remember the track meets at Yankee Stadium back in the 60 seconds, you know exactly what I'm talking about. In a relay, the fastest runner means nothing if they drop the baton in the passing zone. Everything, every practice stride, every trained muscle, every ounce of preparation comes down to those few feet where one runner hands off to the next. September 22nd and 23rd are your passing zone. You've been running your leg of this race for 70, 80, 90 years. You've carried the baton through the Great Depression stories your parents told you, through Vietnam, through civil rights, through 9/11, through economic crashes and personal tragedies that would have destroyed weaker souls. You've gripped that baton of faith through divorces, funerals, diagnoses, betrayals, and dark nights when you couldn't see 3 feet in front of you. And now, right now, heaven is positioning you in the passing zone. Your children need what you're carrying. Your grandchildren are starving for the spiritual inheritance you've been building. This nation, this broken, confused, searching nation, is dying for the wisdom that only comes from walking with God through decades of fire. But here's the warning that should shake you to your core. If you drop the baton, it doesn't just fall to the ground, it transfers to another. God's purposes will not be stopped. If you refuse to pass what you've been given, he will find someone else. Someone younger, perhaps. Someone less qualified, maybe, but someone willing. And you will spend your final years watching from the sidelines as another carries the blessing that had your name on it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Your silence is not neutral. Your withdrawal is not harmless. Your decision to just fade away quietly doesn't just affect you. It orphans an entire generation, waiting for their inheritance. Deuteronomy 34 breaks my heart every time I read it. Moses, 120 years old, eyes still clear, strength still undiminished, stands on Mount Nebo. He can see the promised land stretched out before him. 40 years of leading, teaching, interceding, and suffering to get Israel to this moment. But he doesn't get to cross over himself. Instead, he lays hands on Joshua. He transfers the mantle. He passes the baton. And because Moses was faithful in his passing zone, Joshua led Israel into their inheritance. Now let me ask you something that might sting. What if your grandchildren's breakthrough depends on whether you show up on September 22nd and 23rd? What if that prodigal child finally comes home because you were awake during these 2 days? What if your family line breaks free from generational poverty, addiction, and spiritual blindness because you, the elder, the forgotten one, the too old to matter, one you stood in your passing zone and handed off what heaven gave you to carry? Proverbs 13:22 declares, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children." Not just money, not just property. Inheritance, spiritual authority, divine covering, breakthrough anointing that's been building compound interest for decades. But you can't leave what you won't release. September 22nd and 23rd are the days heaven has marked for the great handover. The wisdom you carry, the prayers you've prayed, the tears you've sowed, the faith you've built, it's all coming to harvest. But the harvest doesn't automatically transfer. You must step into the passing zone with intention. This isn't about you anymore. This is about the baby born last week who will need the spiritual covering you're about to release. This is about the teenager contemplating suicide who will be saved by the prayer mantle you pass forward. This is about the single mother 2 blocks away who's about to give up, until the blessing you release shifts the atmosphere over her neighborhood. Your destiny was never private, it was always generational. So I'm asking you directly, will you show up? Will you stay awake? Will you extend your hand in that passing zone? Or will you clutch the baton to your chest and take it to the grave? Because September 22nd and 23rd aren't asking you to run another marathon. They're asking you to complete the handoff, to look behind you at what's coming and say, "Here, take what I've been carrying. It's yours now. Don't drop it." The relay isn't over. Your leg is just ending. But the race continues through those you pass it to. And heaven is watching to see if you'll honor the moment when everything transfers. Beloved, as we come to the close of this sacred moment together, I need you to hold 3 eternal truths close to your heart. First, September 22nd and 23rd are not just dates on a calendar. They are divine appointments, spiritual coordinates where heaven intersects with your earthly reality. What you do in these 48 hours will echo into your future in ways you cannot yet imagine. Second, your age is not your disqualification. It is your coronation. Every year you've lived, every battle you've survived, every tear you've cried in secret, it has all been preparation for this passing zone. You are not winding down. You are being positioned for the greatest handoff of your life. Third, the baton you carry is not yours to keep. It was given to you to pass forward. Your children, your grandchildren, this broken and searching nation, they are all waiting for what heaven placed in your hands. But hear me clearly, dear one, you are not walking this path alone. Right now, in this very moment, the God who parted the Red Sea is still working in your life. The God who raised Lazarus from the dead is still breathing on your situation. The God who fed 5,000 with 5 loaves is still multiplying what you thought was insufficient. He hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't moved on to someone younger or stronger or more qualified. You are still his chosen vessel. And these 2 days are proof that your assignment is far from over. Beyond that, you have a community right here, thousands of believers who understand your journey, who carry the same calling, who feel the same weight of generational responsibility. We are not just viewers on a screen. We are your spiritual family, your prayer warriors, your brothers and sisters who will stand with you in these crucial hours. So let me ask you one final question, a question that will determine everything about what happens next. When September 22nd dawns and heaven opens the passing zone, will you show up with your hands extended, ready to release what God has been building in you for decades? Will you trust that the baton you've been carrying was meant to fly from your hands into the next generation? Before you go, I want to place my hand on your shoulder spiritually, right now through these words, and pray over your life with every ounce of faith I possess. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious soul who has heard this word today. Lord, you see them not as the world sees them, old and forgotten, but as you see them, crowned with glory and laden with purpose. Father, I pray that you would breathe fresh fire into their weary bones. Where they feel invisible, reveal your hand upon their lives. Where they feel uncertain, flood them with divine clarity. Where they feel inadequate, remind them that Moses was 80, Abraham was 100, and Anna was 84 when you used them mightily. God, I ask that you would position them perfectly for September 22nd and 23rd. Remove every distraction, silence every lie, and awaken their spirits to recognize the passing zone when it comes. Give them courage to extend their hands. Give them faith to release the baton. Give them peace knowing that what they pass forward will change generations they will never meet. Surround them with your angels. Protect their sleep, guard their health, strengthen their resolve. Let them feel your pleasure over their lives, your joy in their faithfulness, your pride in how they've carried what you gave them through decades of testing. And Father, let this prayer be the seal that locks in their destiny. From this moment forward, Mark them as ready, willing, and positioned for the greatest transfer of their lives. In Jesus' mighty name, Amen. Now, beloved, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell me, what is God stirring in your heart right now? What baton are you carrying that needs to be passed? What inheritance are you preparing to release? Don't keep it to yourself. Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find courage for their own handoff. If you need prayer for these specific days, ask us. This community will surround you with intercession. If you felt the weight of this message, share it with someone who needs to remember they're not finished, they're just entering their finest hour. And please, if this word has touched your soul, hit that subscribe button. Every week, we're releasing messages specifically for those who refuse to believe their calling expires with their retirement. You belong here. This is your spiritual family. These are your people. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for letting these words penetrate deep, for saying yes to what God is asking of you in these sacred days. Remember, September 22nd and 23rd are coming. The passing zone is opening, and heaven is watching to see if you'll complete the handoff that will change everything. You are not too old. You are not forgotten. You are not finished. You are the answer to prayers that haven't even been prayed yet. Go in peace. Go in power. Go knowing that what you release in these 2 days will echo through eternity. Until we meet again, stay ready, stay faithful, stay positioned. Your finest hour is not behind you. It's waiting in the passing zone. God bless you, beloved. The baton is in your hands. What will you do with it?